Oh hi. Montreal, the largest city to the provinces of Quebec and the second largest city in Canada. Originally I was called Ville-Marie, the city of Marie. The name Montreal happened from Mount Montreal, the Royal Mountain, which is in the downtown, before Montreal arose under the influence of Occitan, part of the first settlers. According to 2016, the population of Big Montreal made 4,098,927 people. The population of the Montreal makes 1,704,694 persons. The only official language in the city, French, for 59.8% of residents. This language is native. Then by the number of carriers, English -19.4% follows. In Big Montreal the share of carriers of French makes 67.9% of the population, the second place is taken by English -16.5%. More than a half of the population of the city owns in a varying degree both languages. Till 2014 Montreal was the second in population French-speaking city of the world after Paris, but by 2015 on the third position, displaced in the African Abidjan. In the world there are also other large French-speaking cities, the African Kinshasa, Casablanca, Algeria, but in these cities French is used mainly in writing or as the second language. Montreal ordinary takes the highest places in the rating of the cities most comfortable for life in the world. The Montreal magazine called the city the cultural capital of Canada, and recently UNESCO called Montreal the city of design. Having conceded in the mid-70s the title economic the capitals of Toronto, Montreal remains the important business, industrial and cultural center of Canada. Among the most significant industries: space, biotechnological, pharmaceutical, information technology industry, tourism, the film industry, and also the developed industry of computer games. Archaeological finds prove that various tribes of Indians lived on the island Montreal 400 years ago. By 1000 AD they began to cultivate corn. For several centuries Indians built several strengthened villages. The Lavrentiste Mohawks living separately from other Mohawks inhabiting the territory of the modern state of New York founded the village Hochelaga at the foot of Mount Montreal in 2 centuries prior to arrival of the French. Archaeologists found artifacts of their dwellings in it and other places of the valley, dated at least the 14th century. The French pioneer Jacques Cartier, who visited the village on October 2, 1535, estimated the population of Hochelaga as exceeding 1,000 people. "70 years later, the French researcher Samuel D. Champlain reported that Lavrentiste Mohawks and their settlements disappeared from the valley of the river of Saint Lavrenti, is possible because of emigration, epidemic of the European diseases, or intertribal wars." In 1611 Champlain founded a post for trade in furs on the island Montreal, on the place which originally was called La Place Royale, on the place of merge the Brevier Riviere and Saint Lavrenti's rivers. In 1639, Kerem Leroy de Laudeverser received the title of the Seigneur of the island Montreal and the head of the Society Notre-Dame de Montreal, created by Catholic Church for distribution of Christianity among locals. Paul of Comédie de Maisonneuve was at the time the governor of colony. So on May 17, 1642 evangelists based a mission fort on the place of 2 days downtown named by Ville-Marie, in honor of Blessed Virgin Mary of Virgin Mary. Its number is considered official date of the basis of Montreal, and in the present it is noted in a compartment with Day of Victoria on the third Monday of May. Became Ville-Marie the center of trade and furs and base for further French expansion in North America. By the beginning of the 18th century there begins missionary activity. Catholic Society of Saint Sulpice here. To support the French colonists they convinced Mogov to leave Ville-Marie and to found the new settlement in the former hunting possession to the north from the river Ottawa. The Canadian territory remained the French colony till 1760, when territories were transferred to Great Britain after the victory in 7 Years' War. Montreal was registered as the city in 1832. Opening of Lachine Channel allowed vessels to make a detour of non-navigable Lashinsky thresholds, and construction of the bridge Victoria made the important railway junction of Montreal. By 1860 Montreal became the largest city in the British North America, both the indisputable economic and cultural centre of Canada. Montreal was the capital of Canada since May 10, 1844. After transferring of the capital from Kingston for 1849, but lost the status when the crowd of the Tory burned the Parliament building in protest at adoption of law on revolt indemnification in the Lower Canada. For strategic reasons, Ottawa, located in more remote region of the country, was chosen as the capital. After World War I, owing to acceptance of the prohibition in the United States, Montreal became a shelter for looking for opportunity to drink Americans. At the same time, in the city the problem of unemployment, which was aggravated with a collapse of the stock market in 1929 and approach of the Great Depression, was particularly acute. During World War II, Montreal Mayor Camille Houde protested against a conscription. On August 2, 1940 he placed in the press the statement with an appeal to citizens not to be registered in the Federal Register of all men and women. 2 days later Camille Houde was arrested and extrajudicially sent to the labor camp for interned, where was till 1944. By 1951 the population of Montreal exceeded 1 million people. In 1959 the Seaway of St. Laurent, allowing ocean vessels to pass from Atlantic to the Great Lakes, was opened, passing Montreal. It will lead to the end of economic domination of the city over time. However, in the 1960th in Montreal economic growth continues. The World Fair Expo -67 is held, the highest skyscrapers in Canada are built, speedways are paved, and the Montreal subway is under construction. In the 1978 years the period of large-scale social and political changes began. The aspiration of the French-speaking majority to keep the culture and language against the background of traditional prevalence of the Anglo-Canadian minority in the sphere of business became their main reason. October Croatia and elections of 1976, as a result of which in Bar there is a Parti Québécois which proclaimed the main task fight for the state sovereignty of Quebec lead to the fact that from the city outflow of the Anglo-Canadian capital and the population begins. In 1976 in Montreal the Summer Olympic Games are held. In the 1980th and the beginning of the 1990th years Montreal experiences economic slowdown in comparison with other large cities of Canada. On January 1, 2002, as a result of accession of 27 surrounding municipalities, the uniform city of Montreal covering all territory of the island of the same name was formed. It caused a wave of indignation of inhabitants of a number of English-speaking suburbs. Following the results of the independent referenda held among inhabitants of these suburbs in June 2004, a part of municipalities, 13% of the population of the island, made the decision to leave structure of uniform Montreal. As a result of the office which took place on January 1, 2006 on the island, there were 15 municipalities including Montreal. Nevertheless, the separated municipalities remained connected with Montreal by means of the council, which is engaged in taxation for fee of numerous services. Montreal is located on the island Montreal of the same name, at confluence of Street Lawrence and Ottawa. The territory of the city also includes several nearby small islands, as well as some small towns. Areas which are on the island are excluded. For example, Hempstead, Montreal, Westmount, Côte Saint-Luc and others. The city is approximately in 250 km to the southwest from Quebec, the capital of the province, and in the 200 km to the east from Ottawa, the state capital. The main natural attraction of Montreal is the height and about 250 m over water level called Mount Montreal. In due time on the mountain there took place building of houses for a rich part of the population, generally because of a possibility of the review of all city. Today they're the biggest cemetery of Montreal, Notre-Dame-des-Neiges, and also the park of the same name, which became a direct part of city life, and the protected environment is located. Montreal is located on a joint of several climatic zones. As a rule, the climate is defined as continental damp. Summer in Montreal warm, but often stuffy, with average high temperatures from 26 C, 79 F, and low from 16 C, 61 F. Temperature often exceeds 30 C, 86 F. The winter in Montreal usually cold, snow, windy, and from time to time appears ice, with an average temperature 6 -9 C. However, some winter days with lower temperatures below 20 C, -4 F. The spring and fall pleasantly soft on weather, but are inclined to sharp temperature drops. Later there comes the heat season and also Indian summer. There are also blizzards in November, March and April. The lowest temperature for all history of meteorological observations was recorded at the level 37.8 C, -36 F. in 1957, and the most high temperature made +37.6 C, 100 F. in 1975. The annual amount of precipitation makes about 998 m, 39 inches, including average 218 cs, 86 inches, of snow, which drops out from November to March. Thunderstorms usually begin at the end of spring and continue all summer prior to the beginning of fall. Besides, the remains of tropical storm can cause pouring rains. The city receives more than 2,000 sundial a year. The summer is solar, but quite damp. According to a census of 2011, in Montreal there were 1,649,519 inhabitants. At the same time, in Big Montreal including suburbs lived 3,824,221 persons. Among residents of Montreal there are much more immigrants. In percentage terms, than in other cities of the province. The vast majority of the immigrants arriving in Quebec lodge in Montreal, and am also the highest percent of the English-speaking population among all cities of the province of Quebec. Montreal, the multinational megalopolis with very difficult demolinguistic situation. Though now here various nationalities, cultures, religions quite peacefully get on, not always a relationship between communities was cloudless. After fall of New France, the British Empire carried out active, but eventually unsuccessful policy of assimilation of the local Franco-Canadian population, though from 1840 to 1860 Anglophones made more than a half of residents, and Montreal till 1978 years was the largest city of Canada. After so-called Quiet Revolution, French Canadians managed to redeem the dominant position in the city, and many English Quebecers preferred migration to other cities of Canada, first of all, Toronto. About 50% of the modern population of Montreal are considered by French native and uses his houses, 23% English and 18% speak other languages. See Allophones. 2016. At the same time, more than a half of inhabitants are fluent both in French and English, though the Charter of French of 1977 proclaims French the only official language of the city. Russian considerably expanded the presence in Montreal for the last 15 years. From 3.3 million inhabitants in 2001, he was called to the family of 12.5 thousand people. 0.4% of the population of agglomeration. In 2006 it was made by 5,000 people from 3.6 million inhabitants. 0.5% of the population. However, actually the number Russian-speaking, including natives of all regions of the former USSR, fluctuates by estimates from 15 to 25,000 people. In 2006 Russian took the 10th place. Most of Russian-speaking inhabitants, recent immigrants from Russia and the countries of the former USSR. However, there are also immigrants and their descendants, the first and second waves of emigration. Considerable concentration of the Russian-speaking population is in the region of Côte d'Ivoire and nearby. See Russian in Canada. Though the Russian speech can quite often be met in any international districts of the city. Now the highest concentration of the Russian-speaking population is observed in municipality Côte Saint-Luc, who formerly is the certain city. In the city 5 free weekly newspapers in Russian are issued. There are several Russians book. And not only shops, video salons, drugstores, epicures, restaurants. Books in Russian are available in regional and in university libraries. Among foreign literature, there is a broadcasting in Russian. There are paid Russian schools of the day of diploma. The oldest exists since 1994. Lyceum, Dream and Eureka. There are paid Russian language kindergartens and day nursery. In Montreal there are also 2 Orthodox cathedrals with service in Russian, 1 Russian-speaking synagogue and also Russian-speaking houses of worship for adherents of various religions. Russian is taught at 2 universities of the city, the Université de Montréal, in French, and in McGill University, in English. The mayor, Montreal since 2017 is Valerie Plante. City Council, the principal decisive organ of Montreal. It consists of 64 DICs, 45 city advisors and 19 mayors of districts, and the mayor of Montreal. Many spheres of life of the city, including public safety, intergovernmental exchanges, environment problems, town planning and some programs of subsidies are included into power of City Council. The City Council also controls some decisions of councils of districts. The territory of the city is divided into 19 districts. Livnea city street symbolizing one's dividing line in literal and figurative sense between the Anglo and French-speaking population, and nowadays the center of tourist and trade life, Boulevard Saint Laurent. Montreal economy is in many respects typical for the large post-industrial city of the developed capitalist country, though it has also the unique lines in comparison both with other cities of Quebec and with the cities of Canada and the USA. Prior to the beginning of the 1970th years, the city actually was the economic capital of the industrialized Canada. The Anglo-American capital and rather cheap French-speaking labor helped to turn Montreal into the center of the textile industry. Long time exactly there arrived many immigrants from Europe in job searches at factories, the plants and in city port, the being one of the largest river ports of the world. However, rapid growth hid the growing ethno-language contradictions in the city. The first signs of loss of the city as paradise for the Anglo-American capital were shown after World War II, when rapid growth of the French-Canadian nationalism, which came to the end with quiet revolution, began. Without wishing to be reconciled with downgrade of English and seeking to revenge French Canadians for their unwillingness to keep the status quo, a considerable part of English-speaking business elite in a Massachusetts order left the city, having transferred the capitals to English-speaking Toronto. Massachusetts emigration of Anglophones and capital outflow from the city in 1970, the 1980th, led to almost 20-year economic depression in the city, which was followed by recession, Massachusetts unemployment and almost zero growth of the population. The situation in the city began to improve after 1995, when many world corporations, including the Anglo-American, reconciled to French language transformation of the city and began to come back. At the same time, the city economy passed to post-industrial rails and received more French character. So in the city, the service sector, education, insurance, finance and the credit prevail. Montreal is also recognized as one of the design centers of the world, the space industry, pharmaceutics, the cosmetic industry, perfumery, tourism here to gain development. Moreover, modern Montreal actually competes with Paris as the most important center of the French-speaking industry of music, culture and entertainments. The famous performers Celine Dion, popular music, Zaho, the French rap. In the city there are a set of offices of the largest banks of the world. The producer of Molson beer, the sports arena. There take place the international and local national hockey competitions. Tennis courts. On them hold competitions for Rogers' Cup, for which Maria Sharapova fought. The route of the sports cause Formula 1, huge port with railway transport, which not. Big attractions for children, La Ronda. On St. Helena's Island on St. Lavrenti's River. Production of aircraft engines and planes, helicopters and spare parts to them, a set of colleges and universities. Low inflation, less than 2% a year, the city basis of the economy. Public transport in Montreal is presented by collective taxi, in the manner of minibuses, local trains, buses and the subway. For payment of transport, the magnetic card, including from the admission for 1 day to the monthly travel card, is used. One-time use is usually paid with cash. During disposable, there is also a possibility of set of changes up to 3 routes. The bus, the subway, the bus. Both types of transport are up to 2 routes. The subway, the bus and the bus, the bus. Everyone. At the same time, set is considered one trip only if routes are crossed among themselves or have the general final. The Montreal Transport Society Free Saint is responsible for all transport of the city, except for local trains. Survey conducted by Society in 2002 showed that about 33% of inhabitants to reach work used public transport, 52.4% get by the car driving, 4.3% as passengers, 8.2% come on foot, and 2% prefer the bicycle. Characteristic of the subway is the trains work adhere to the course, but rails are kept as guides of the left wheels of railway type. Engineers consider that in this case the vibration caused by the course of trains will be less destructive for the buildings which are above, than in case of the traditional bearing steel wheels. For an entrance and entry into the stations along with escalators, also the system of the inclined moving sidewalk is used. Many stations of the subway are connected by underground passages which extend under several quarters of the city, forming the so-called underground city. In these transitions there are shops, café and even several underground theaters at the Arts Square station. Place des Arts, the station is called the same as the concert exhibition complex of the same name. For transit between actually Montreal and the settlements adjoining them, there is a network of trains and exobuses with 8 tariff zones. By 2021 it is planned to open network of the high-speed electric train of Big Montreal, REM, which through a number of transfer stations will connect to the Montreal subway. Partially this network will be founded on one of the operating EXO lines, which thus will pass from structure of EXO into new network. The Montreal tram is both a part of history of the city and one of present projects. In the 1950th years, Montreal contained 510 km of tramways on all island, in single line measurement. By then is 200 km more than in Toronto. However, in 1955 the city government adopted the decree on elimination of trams with further replacement them on bus transport. The last tram passed on the Montreal streets on August 30, 1959. Many ways were asphalted and today their pieces can still be noticed on crossings of some streets of the central Montreal. In 2005 I approved Gravity, the project about recreation of the central tram branch on Avenue du Parc from the downtown to northern areas with the purpose to involve the population in use of alternative means of transport, as opposed to movement on cars. In a year to the project, 2 more lines, Côte-de-Neiges and Verdun, increased. After replanning of an outcome about Avenue des Pins in 2007-08, the project after all took effect, despite his scanty financing by the private sector. Startup of the first tram line was calculated by Montreal General Plan for 2012. Nevertheless, the event, which led further to restructuring of city administrative bodies, postponed construction of the tram at first for the 2015, and then, for the 2025 year. At the moment, the question isn't considered as badly as in 2014. Transport Society invested several tens of millions of dollars, which are initially provided by the highest authorities on development of a tram question in electrification and a hybridization of the buses, which by 2020 will cease to use gasoline. Culture and sites. Montreal is the cultural center not only the provinces of Quebec, but also all French-speaking part of North America, and also the main Canadian producer of TV and broadcasts, movies, theatrical performances, printing and electronic editions in French. In the city, Saint Sulpice's Library, the first library in French in Canada, is located. Since 1977, the Festival of World Cinema, which is fairly considered as one of the most prestigious film forums, is held. Literary and musical life of Montreal is concentrated in numerous cafes of Latin Quarter. The noticeable contribution to cultural activity is made by local English language community. The dynamism and a variety of the musical life of the city, kindled by numerous festivals, is result of close interaction of various cultural currents. In Montreal, the annual International Montreal Jazz Festival is held. This event brings together millions of fans of jazz from all corners of the world. More than 500 concerts in 10 days of a festival, from most of which part passes under the open sky. The number of audience of such concerts reaches card people. Since 1989, in Montreal annually there takes place the world's largest festival of francophone music, Francophonie de Montréal. Annually in the Laurent Park there takes place one of the largest competitions among pyrotechnic teams of the world. It takes place in the summer within 1.5 months. Usually 7-8 teams act, and in conclusion spends a demonstration performance local team organizer of a festival. Architecture. Old Montreal, the historic and cultural center of the city where the majority of sites is concentrated. Bonsicker Market. Basilica Notre Dame. Museums. Montreal Museum of Fine Arts. Montreal Museum of Modern Art. Museum Redpat. Theaters. Theater of 50. Varpakovsky. Education. McGill University, Case of Arts. In Montreal there are 6 universities and 12 colleges in a radius of 8 km. The city has the highest concentration of students among all large cities of North America. 4.38 students on 100 inhabitants, and Boston with 4.37 students on 100 inhabitants follows further. In the city there are 2 English-language universities. The McGill University is one of the oldest universities of Canada and is widely recognized as educational institution of a world class. The McGill University steadily enters in top -25 the universities in the world according to the rating of Times Higher Education Q's World University for the last 6 years. As of 2009. The Concordia University was created as a result of merge of the University of Sir George Williams and Loyola's College in 1974. There are also 2 French-language universities located in Montreal. The Université Montreal. Montreal University, UDM, UD. is the second largest research university in Canada. Two separate institutions are a part of the university: Polytechnical School of Montreal, Engineering School, and the highest business school of Montreal, PEC. The University of Quebec in Montreal, UQAM, is a part of the system of the University of Quebec, using at the same time considerable academic and administrative independence. UQAM mainly specializes in humanitarian specialties. Several higher educational institutions located in Montreal and its vicinities also belong to the University of Quebec. The Higher Technical School, ETS, campuses of National School of Government, NAP, and National Research Institute, INRIS. Besides two French-language universities, the Sherbrooke University and Laval University have branches in the nearby suburb Longueuil on the southern river bank of St. Laurent. The education system in the province of Quebec differs from other systems in North America a little. Between high school and the university there is additional level of college which is called cégep. It at the same time in preparatory school. Training of pupils for entering a university. And technical school. The offering courses which lead to a secondary special education. In Montreal 17 cégep offer courses in French and 5 in English. English language elementary and high public schools on the island Montreal are operated by the Montreal English School Council, the School District, and School Council of Lester B. Pearson. French language elementary and high public schools in Montreal treat the School Commission of Montreal and also the School Commission of Margaret Bourgeois. Sport. In the city, the Autodrome called in honor of the famous Canadian racer Gilles Villeneuve annually is located. There passes the Grand Prix of Canada in Class Formula 1. Also in the city, the oldest and most titled club of non-Montreal Canadiens is based. In the city, the football club Montreal Impact, acting in Mills, is also located. 2 days Montreal, the advanced city. Information Center, largest in Canada, one of the world's largest financial, economic centers. Textile Center, largest in Canada. One of the most important and strategically significant cities of the country. Ultramodern thoroughfares connect Montreal to other cities of Canada and the USA, including Toronto and New York. The second most important transport hub of Canada, after Toronto. Large plants on production of military equipment. Montreal strongly keeps for a long time in the list of the cities of the world optimum for accommodation. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.